Okay, not everyone knows that there is a fourth trimester. Well, it's what I call the fourth trimester. It's been called the fourth trimester in other areas too, but you have the first, second, and third trimester when you are pregnant, and the fourth trimester is after you have baby and recovery. So I want to go over that because it's so important. Not a lot of people focus on the fourth trimester, and there's so much involved in this that if you prepare in advance, then this should go so much better. The recovery for mother should go so much better. Baby's development and well-being should go much better as well. So for mother and baby, it's important that we talk about the fourth trimester. So in this, we're going to talk about postpartum physiological changes. Right here, and Western versus traditional postpartum practices, nutrients and foods that support optimal breastfeeding supply and a speedier recovery and replenish nutrient stores, postpartum exercise, when and how, postpartum weight loss and body image, mental and emotional health. So I'm not going to go over every single one of these in full detail, just kind of talk about them generally so that you can get a good idea of what to focus on and prepare and just kind of hopefully know in advance like what to look forward to for postpartum. Physiological changes that occur in postpartum are your perineal tissues need to repair and recover if they're stretched, torn, or cut. So even if you don't have a perineal tear, the muscle fibers inside your perineum or inside your pelvis, so here's your perineum right here, here's your rectum, these are the outlets. So this is like you're looking at, I don't have my pelvis in front of me, but this is as if you're looking at the inside of a pelvis going out. So your connective tissues are going to remodel, like I mentioned before, the pelvic floor, your perineum, even the muscle fibers inside your vaginal walls, all those connective tissues for the uterus and the ligaments and the tendons they're all going to remodel and go back to their normal size and shape before pregnancy. Your skin is going to regain elasticity, so all that stretching that needs to happen for baby to grow and develop and your body to adapt for that, it's going to go back and be more elastic and tighten. Instead of focusing on stretching, it's going to focus on going back and being tight and more elastic. Your breasts are going to change for milk production, which we talked about before. There's a huge hormonal shift from pregnant to non-pregnant state, emotional ups and downs, so many emotional ups and downs. And the reason why I mention this because there is a lot of women who don't realize that these emotional ups and downs that they feel are normal. And we'll go into that a little bit more detail too further on. So hormone changes for milk production. There's also that happens on top of just normal pregnancy hormone changes. And so there's some things that some women notice, throughout their body and emotions, even just with the hormone changes for milk production. Your thyroid needs to adapt to the constant changes. That's a huge part of postpartum recovery. Adrenals are stressed due to the recovery, your baby's needs, and lack of sleep. So there's a lot that a woman goes through during postpartum. Okay, so from birth to 2 weeks, these are some things we're going to talk about. Your uterus contracts to bring it down to the original size and position. The wound from the placenta is healing and organs are reorienting. So as baby grows, it's going to push your stomach up, it's going to push your spleen around, different organs aside from your uterus are going to be displaced to make room for baby to grow. So, and also your uterus is going to contract down to bring it down to the original size and position. That happens immediately after birth. You're going to start your uterus, and especially after the placenta is delivered, you're going to start noticing your uterus contracting down to the original size where it needs to fit. So again, it's going to be like the size of a watermelon down to a pear. Pear size is about how big your uterus is normally, about the size of your fist, and it sits all the way down in the bottom of your pelvis, and that takes a lot of work. It's hard on the uterus, it's hard on your body, but also it can be easier if you're taking it easy and being careful with your daily activities. So you may or may not experience after pains. That's the cramping that persists for about 3 to 4 days. Some women it's a little bit longer, some women it's only about 3 days, especially while breastfeeding. So most first-time mothers don't experience these after pains, and that's the cramping that happens to contract that uterus down. But consecutive babies, you will notice it, and it seems to get a little bit worse with each baby. Not to try and, I'm not saying this to try and scare you. It's just to be aware of, because some women don't realize after they've had their first baby and they've had their second, and they're like, what is happening? Why am I still cramping? That's a very normal thing. Just a lot of first-time women don't experience it at all. But your uterus is still contracting down after your first baby if you're not feeling those after pains. But you just, for some reason, those first-time babies, you don't feel it as much. Careful of your activities. So any bending, lifting, kind of like I was mentioning before, or just like I was mentioning before, any bending, lifting more than the baby's weight. So if you have another baby or a toddler, you really want to be careful not to lift them up and put them on your lap. You want to let them crawl up next to you and sit, and then, help them over onto your lap, but you just don't want to lift them up. Anything that weighs more than your baby, you don't want to be lifting that first 2 weeks. So being careful of stairs, vacuuming, those things I mentioned before. Pace yourself according to your bleeding and your body signals. So the soreness that I talked about before and your bleeding. So your bleeding is going to taper off. It's going to be pretty heavy, like a heavy period the first couple days, and then it's going to taper off to be more like a light period. And that's going to come and go throughout the first generally 6 weeks postpartum. You're going to notice some bleeding here and there. And if you get into your daily activities and you start, working into those more, adding more in, and you maybe even exercising a little bit more, and you notice more bright, fresh blood, then that's your body telling you you're doing too much, or you're feeling a heaviness in your pelvis, or you're just an ache down in your lower abdomen, or even like an ache in your hips. That's usually your body telling you you're pushing yourself too hard. This is too much for me. I need you to back off so I can heal, so that I can heal like I need to. So you're going to be sore from birth to 2 weeks most of the time. Not all women, but a lot of women, especially those first, that first week or even first 4 or 5 days. But there's going to be some soreness, some tenderness through your breasts, through your perineum, your abdomen. You're going to be sore. So resting and tired. So tired from birth, tired from taking care of baby, tired from being up at night. Resting is so crucial. You're going to notice some vaginal bleeding for around 4 to 8 weeks postpartum. So pay attention to any clots, the flow, how heavy it is, how light it is, the color and the smell. So it is actually important to notice if you completely stop bleeding. Most women bleed to about, like I said before, around 6 weeks. That's a general time. It's really common, about 6 weeks. But if you notice that your bleeding completely stops, and that's off and on bleeding, it's not like a constant, not like a regular period bleeding. It's like some days you'll bleed a little bit more, some days you'll bleed hardly at all. So, but you'll notice that kind of throughout the first 6 weeks postpartum. But if you notice around, the first week or 2 weeks after that your bleeding has completely stopped, you want to for sure let your midwife know, because that can be an indication that there might be something going on with your uterus that is not great. So could be signs of an infection, or your uterus not clamping down and moving down to the right size like it should. So your swelling starts to subside around 2 weeks. The swelling that you have in your hands and your face, sometimes immediately after birth, if you've had some swelling during pregnancy, sometimes like the first day after birth, your swelling is like starting to go away or completely gone. For some women it takes around 2 weeks postpartum for their swelling to go down. And some swelling, even if you didn't have swelling before, is normal due to all that your body goes through. So even if you didn't have swelling before baby, just like in pregnancy, some women don't experience swelling at all in their hands and their ankles and their feet. But then there's sometimes swelling after baby, just because of all that your body goes through with labor and delivery. And then if you're in the hospital and you have to have IV fluids, there would be swelling with that. Or sometimes at home, if there's a hemorrhage and it's excessive bleeding that's a lot more than we see, we'll give an IV to help a mother recover from that more quickly, and that can cause swelling as well. Normal swelling that your body will get rid of. So if you have any perineal tear, stretch, cut, or a C-section, incision, that's going to need extra time to care and to heal, extra care and time to heal, just like I mentioned before. So careful of how you sit and how long you stand. Sometimes standing is just as bad as doing too much if you're standing for long periods because of that extra weight that's being pulled down just from gravity. So you just want to be careful not standing too long. Walking is excellent postpartum, like to get up and walk around, to get that blood flow and the circulation going. Walking is excellent postpartum. Just don't overdo it. Pay attention to how sore your body is. So it's good to walk, after you have your baby, get up and walk to the bathroom. Maybe after you're in the bathroom, walk around, pace a little bit around the bed. Avoid stairs, but, and then throughout the next few weeks, slowly add in more walking, but pay attention to your body signals and your body telling you you're doing too much. Extra soreness in your lower abdomen and your perineal floor, and extra bleeding, like if your bleeding picks up and gets heavier. So that's something that you can monitor throughout the first 2 weeks as well as the whole time, like even up to 6 weeks. So lactation and your female regulating hormones are working on overtime. So it takes a lot out of your body just to feed a baby. And again, like I mentioned before, those female hormones regulating, getting back to normal, that's a lot on your body as well. And they're working on overtime to regulate, to balance, to get back to the pre-pregnancy state. So you may experience some night sweats. An off smell is actually something that is common. Like women will just sweat more and they'll just kind of feel weird, and it's a common thing. It's not with all women, but it's a common thing. My theory is women who notice this off smell are women who actually have higher sugar diets, higher processed refined carb diets before they deliver. It's something that I've kind of just paid attention to and wondered if that might be. Women who have more of that going on pre-birth during pregnancy notice that off smell more, from my experience, in paying attention to women communicating that with me. So joint instability is still a thing. That relaxin hormone has not completely gone, so the joints are still going to be wobbly and they're going to be off. So you want to be careful of activities because of that as well. And baby blues. Baby blues is a very common thing, and we'll talk more about that. There is that in that handout that I gave. It does give the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression, so I highly recommend everyone read that handout first of all, but especially pay attention to the differences between baby blues and postpartum depression. Engorgement, breast milk leaking excessively for many. So the engorgement we talked about in the breast feeding class, but I went over it really quickly. So if anybody has any questions on that, please text me, or call, whichever, and let me know if you have any questions on engorgement and signs of it and what to do for it. Breast milk leaking, I put that on there because a lot of women don't realize that they're going to leak a lot of milk when their milk comes in, and sometimes that first 2 weeks until that breast milk production regulates and that supply and demand gets figured out between mom and baby. So hungry. Most nutritionally demanding period of postpartum recovery is from birth to 8 weeks, where mothers need to be fed. So some women are not very hungry and they have to regain their appetite, and it's really important. I highly encourage eat anyway. So that's husband's job to make sure, or family members, if husband's busy, make sure she eats. Even if she says she's not hungry, even if she just takes a few bites of some proteins and healthy carbs and, does it again in a couple hours. But eating is so important. It's so crucial for all this postpartum recovery, regulation, hormone regulation, repletion to replete, to put back in what was taken out for pregnancy and birthing, and also for that lactation success, for breastfeeding success. You need so many more calories. It's 400 more calories in addition to what you were having before, to keep up a good breast milk supply. So you want to increase your macros. That's the animal proteins. So a variety of animal proteins. You can include collagen, like I told you guys in the last class. Collagen is excellent. Want to make sure it's from a good source. Grass-fed beef collagen is one of my favorites. There's also like marine sources of collagen, but grass-fed beef is, I feel like, the best. Healthy fats and healthy carbs. Increased energy needs for healing and for breastfeeding. It's just your energy needs are just going to be so much higher for both of these things. So you want to make sure, so some of the best foods for recovery are warm foods, especially that first couple weeks. Warm foods, soft cooked meats and vegetables, collagen-rich meats, soups cooked with warming spices are actually very healing as well, and extra hydration. So extra fluids, extra water. Make sure you get your electrolytes in. Things like that. Teas are great. Be careful of peppermint tea. That can actually limit breast milk supply. So again, during pregnancy, you want to kind of check with your midwife. Make sure teas are okay. Postpartum as well, just in case you're curious, just to make sure, to be on the safe side. So like I mentioned in the breastfeeding portion, galactagogues, those are herbs and supplements that help breast milk supply. You want to, if you feel like you need a boost with your breast milk supply, ask your caregiver. There are some things that actually are not right for some people that work great for others. So ask about that. Daily nutrition that is nutrient dense will optimize recovery and long-term breastfeeding success. So women who focus on these things here actually have a much better turnout weeks. They just feel better. They just feel like, I can conquer the world. I can take care of my baby. I can feed my baby. If they've done these things this first 2 weeks, it's so important. And so I feel like a lot of some husbands are great at it, but some husbands feel like, oh God, it's been this long. Why don't you get up and start doing this and that? And they put pressure on their wives to just get back, or their partners, whoever it is, to just get back into routine and daily activities and things like that. And it's been long enough, but some women need more time. They need extra care, and if they get it in this first couple weeks, it makes a world difference later on. Let's see. So you want to also continue with prenatal vitamins. Some examples here are magnesium, omega-3s. The prenatal vitamins, especially like whatever prenatal vitamin you're taking. Fish oils, the omega-3s are fish oils. Evening primrose oil. This is something that helps to balance those hormones, and it's about 1 to 2 a day is all that's needed. And additional B vitamins and iron supplements as needed. So you just want to consult with your caregiver if you're needing these additional ones. But these ones for sure are recommended at least postpartum to stay on those. And I recommend throughout the first year at least. With most of them, well, actually no, I'm going to go back and say I recommend as long as you're childbearing ages, planning on having kids, just to keep taking them, whether you're breastfeeding, whether you're pregnant or not, to just take them throughout. Because, like I mentioned in the nutrition part of the class, our soils are so depleted of their nutrients. So, even if you're feeling like you're eating a fairly healthy diet, you still need to add those in. Okay. So extra emotional as well as physical support should be given to mother. Line up help ahead of time. This one I put in there because, like I said, I think I mentioned it in the last class, that you don't know what you're going to need. Oh, it's actually in the handout that I gave you. So you don't know what help you're going to need, especially if you're coming into this first baby. You don't realize how much help you're going to need. So if people offer to help, then accept their help. Like, yes, even if you feel like, I've got this, and just accept their help. Say yes, thank you, even if you have extra help, even if you feel like it's more help than you need, it'll pay off, it'll like even out later. So and if you don't feel like you have enough help, ask for help. Like, step out of your comfort zone and ask for help if you don't feel like you have enough. So first 40 days, so that's about from birth up to 6 to 8 weeks. Skin to skin, I encourage for mother and baby throughout the first week, like as much as possible. There's going to be times where mom's going to be tired and she's not going to want to do it. I don't think it needs to be like a constant thing, but do it often. You know, that golden hour, you want that, you know, to be not interrupted, skin to skin contact. But then from there on out, you want to do it for the first week at least. And you, of course, can do it more after that. But that first week at least, like as often as possible. And if mom can't do it, then dad can do it. But baby gets more benefit, mom gets more benefit if mom's doing it. So your uterus begins to move down to normal size and shape. It should remain below the belly at postpartum, so right after your baby's born. Of course, your uterus is big, it's high, it's going to want to cramp down, so you want to pay attention and make sure that right after baby's born that it's staying below your belly button. And your midwife should talk to you, whoever your midwife is, should talk to you about that and how to check for that postpartum. So, and if you're delivering in a hospital and you have a doula, she'll help you know how to do that as well. So let your provider know if it's not staying below the belly button. That's very important to know that. We want to make sure it does. You keep your bladder empty to promote the return to the normal size, shape, and position. That bladder, a full bladder, is going to lift up that uterus and it's going to keep it from cramping down and moving down into the pelvis. And it also can make you bleed more heavily. So it's really important to keep your bladder empty. So your bleeding is going to continue. So that's the lochia, is the bleeding that you're going to have. Again, I already talked about that, how long you're going to bleed. It's an average. Inform your provider if you're noticing bleeding or cramping beyond 6 weeks postpartum. And beware of clots continuing or a foul smell beyond 24 hours postpartum. You actually shouldn't have a foul smell at all, ever. But sometimes there's just like an off smell. But if it's like a foul smell, like a putrid odor, like it's a noticeable odor coming from your perineum, from your pad, then you need to for sure let your midwife know. But blood clots shouldn't last more than 24 hours postpartum. Some are going to be normal, but they shouldn't be continuing after that. So mother and baby are continuing to figure out breastfeeding. This begins to be well established. It's important to ask for additional support and assistance if needed. Don't hesitate. It's so important for mom and baby's mental well-being as well as baby's nutritional well-being, like being fed and nourished, that if you're even wondering if baby's getting enough, it's so important to ask. Or if you're even wondering if you have enough of a supply, make sure that you ask. We have had women come in and bring babies to us postpartum, like 2 weeks postpartum, their 2-week visit, and we've seen babies that are severely malnourished, and not to the fault of the mother. She just didn't know. She just thought her baby, that was normal, like whatever, her baby was just only nursing for 5 minutes at the breast and then falling asleep. And she would just say, well, this baby just sleeps all the time and he just nurses very little. You know, it's just actually that baby was starving. So it doesn't happen often, but it's enough that we just need to make sure that you watch for the signs that we mentioned in the breastfeeding class as well. So let's see. Additional pelvic floor healing should be well established by around 6 weeks. So consider the possibility of a woman's pelvic floor therapist. Assess according to perineal trauma at birth, and and additional care and assistance is needed for C-section delivery, or assess if that's needed. In addition to what's normally given, if you happen to have a C-section, the care that's normally given, you want to make sure that you're monitoring that as far as soreness, infection, things like that. So pelvic floor therapist is somebody that helps those pelvic floor muscles come back together, especially if you've had a severely traumatic tear, more than that's just a normal tear at birth, or an episiotomy where they cut the perineal tissue to allow room for baby. Or sometimes people don't know how to breathe and do the Kegels right, and sometimes their perineal floor just doesn't come back together, even just normally. So If there's any pelvic floor discomfort that's out of the normal, you want to let your caregiver know so that she can refer you to a pelvic floor therapist. They're so helpful for long-term pelvic floor functioning, not even just your vaginal health, but like for your bladder and your rectal health too. The pelvic floor therapist is really important if you feel like things are just not going back to normal. So generally cleared to increase physical activity and intercourse at around 6 weeks if you don't have any more pelvic pain or pressure or heaviness or bleeding. So those things, you might want to ask your caregiver, hey, am I okay to do these things now? Just to make sure. And then we'll ask some questions. We'll ask you like, is this, or how do you feel about this and this? And then if everything clears, we'll say, yep, go ahead and just ease into it. So gauge your activity off of what your body is telling you. And again, the signs that I mentioned before. Just like pregnancy and life in general, nourishing your body is more important than what you weigh. So I put that in there because so many women are feeling like they have to get their pre-pregnancy body back. And they're like, I just want this mom body gone. But a mom body is a blessing. It's like, it's beautiful. I feel like it's beautiful. And so yeah, you might have a little pouch there for a little while. You might have a little bit on your hips, things like that. But those are things that actually your body needs. So it's okay for your body to be a little bit soft, and it's just extra protection for you and for your baby. So ease into it. Don't push yourself. Don't feel like you have to fit into some mold or model after pregnancy. And being a mom is a blessing, and that body will, it'll come when it comes, and it's fine. Nobody's looking at you after you have a baby and like, oh my goodness, I can't believe she's still got that little pouch or thing. They're just looking at how beautiful you are as a mother with your baby. Or most people. And the other people that don't think that, we don't care about them. So, gentle consideration and extra care for matrescence. Matrescence is just that shifting into motherhood. Just that everything that is involved from pre-motherhood to becoming a mother. The developmental transition to motherhood. And so yeah, that's what I was explaining. So be aware of the possible warning signs of postpartum depression or PMADs. PMADs are mood anxiety disorders, postpartum depression, mood and anxiety disorders. And again, that gives a lot of information in that handout that I gave at Thursday in the class, on Thursday in the class. So again, these postpartum depression and PMADs are more than just the baby blues. So continue to rest and replete and nourish your body well, even through that 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, as much as you feel like is needed. Okay, 2 months to 1 year. 2 months, breastfeeding should be well established. Mothers should begin to recover from sometimes even at 1 month or even 3 weeks. You feel like, in some women, even 2 weeks, you feel like, I've got this down. Breastfeeding is great. It's amazing, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So around 2 months is when we say, usually moms are just like, this is a breeze. Like, I don't even have to think about it. It's just automatic, and I love it. It's usually around 2 months when mothers feel that way. You should start to recover from the sleep deprivation. Depends on how baby's sleep patterns are, but extra rest is still needed. So if exhaustion is more apparent, consider these things right here. Additional support from spouse, family, and friends, thyroid or adrenals being off, anemia, and your mental health. If you feel like you're just completely exhausted, wiped out, can't function, consider those things and talk to your caregiver. Hair loss is a normal thing. A lot of people think, I don't know if you guys have heard that people lose their hair after they have their baby. So that's very normal. So there's really not a lot that can be done, or if anything that I know of, that can be done to prevent it. So your body holds on to hair. It holds on to cells while you're pregnant for baby, for protection of baby, to give things to baby. It's going to hold on to whatever it can, and that's including hair. So you're going to notice your hair thickening, getting longer, things like that. And so your body, with the recovery process, it's letting go of old cells, and that's part of your hair. So the hair loss is a very normal thing. It's not something that is going wrong after pregnancy. Usually lasts about 6 to 24 weeks. If it's not recovered around a year, you might want to look into some thyroid issues because that could be impacting it. So at around 2 months to a year, then you should be more at ease with movement and exercise. This depends on your pelvic floor, birth trauma, anything that happened during birth. It also depends on possibly having diastasis, recti. Monitor your body signals and breast milk supply, and are you pushing yourself too hard? So monitor those things. Weight loss, some women naturally shed weight quickly because of the energy used to breastfeed, and others may struggle to lose the baby weight. Remember to focus on nutrition, hydration, rest, and recovery more than your weight. So important. It's important for your mental state as well if you focus on that more. So around 1 year, you should be feeling more back to yourself. Like, oh, I feel more like I did before I was pregnant. Sleep might still probably be broken for mother and baby, so allow patience for mother and baby. Still, many physiological adjustments are made with the mother and the baby. It's biologically normal for baby to wake frequently through the night, since security is given to baby when seeing mother and father at night. So if they're waking up and you're just allowing them to cry themselves back to sleep, that actually has been proven, studies have shown, to cause trauma later in their life. So this sleep training or the cry training, I personally disagree with. Everybody can do their own thing, but I feel like when babies are crying, even toddlers, they need their mom, they need their dad. And so this, it's not like anybody has to listen to me about this, but I feel like it's very, very important for their sense of security and stability, like even later in life, that they need their mom or their dad when they're crying. And this cry training, like, oh, just let them cry it out. Oh, just let them cry. Like, they need their parents to go and pick them up and hug them and love them. They're just little beings. They're little humans. They're still trying to figure out so many things in their life. And so, personally, I feel like those things are wrong, the sleep cry training. I'm a supporter of co-sleeping. I feel like, people probably don't want to hear this, but I have my 6-year-old boy that still sleeps with me almost every single night, and I don't even care. I'm just like, that's fine. When you're old enough that it's weird, we'll just, but he sleeps with me almost every single night. And if he's not in my bed, he's on my floor, and he just wants to be near me, and I love that, and I wouldn't give that up for anything. That's me. I just feel like it makes more secure, stable adults, I feel like. And there's studies that show that as well. Babies should be eating some solids now. Nutritional demand on moms should have decreased. So really quick, I just want to add in, babies should be eating some solids. I would avoid, if you can, the processed baby foods in the store. And there's websites and like Instagram people that do what they call baby-led weaning. And so it's where you introduce actual solid foods, like the foods that you eat, and you just give them little pieces of it around 6 months, 4 to 6 months, little tiny pieces where they're just eating the food that you eat. And then there's studies that show if you do that, there's a lot less allergies, a lot less food intolerances, and things like that if you're giving them the food that you eat, and a lot less picky eaters. So just something there. Of course, you can do what you feel like is best, but that's there's so many additives and so much that goes through processing that baby food that it takes out most of the nutrients. In fact, makes it really hard on the baby's guts, that toddler stage and even on. So like rice milk, so like the rice cereal, oat cereal, things like that. The things that I gave to all my kids when they were babies that I wish so bad that I would have known of now, would have known then what I know now. So, and that's a whole other class, so I won't go into that in so much detail. Baby nursing frequency has most likely dropped. Usually around a year, they're nursing maybe 3 times a day, 1 or 2 times at night, depending on the mother and the baby. Breastfeeding encouraged into or throughout the 2nd year. Many studies have shown benefits to mother and baby for this breastfeeding throughout the 2nd year, if possible, and if preferred. It's up to you. Of course, your choice. But you're likely able to resume normal physical activity around a year, or just already well into it. hopefully in communication with the caregiver, if not feeling at ease with various physical activities and exercises. Your pelvic floor and diastasis recti is likely recovered with the proper care given that I've mentioned before. And your thyroid is possibly still recovering and in flux. So it's still fluctuating between, I'm still trying to figure out these hormones and I'm okay, you know. So it's still fluctuating through that, possibly. So if you're noticing that your hair loss is not recovered, like I mentioned before, you may want to look into thyroid issues. If you have possible signs of postpartum depression or PMADs, again, talk to your caregiver, because sometimes that postpartum depression doesn't show up until a year. And it's very rare, but it does happen. So, and a lot of that has to do with thyroid and how well the mother has taken care of her body, or how much care she's been given through that first year postpartum. So continue to replete are you getting the right amount of macronutrients? What is your nutrition quality like? And are you getting the adequate amounts of the, I said macro, but I meant micronutrients. Make sure you're getting those. So there's the macronutrients and the micronutrients. There's a difference between the two. The adequate macros, again, that's the proteins, healthy fats, and carbohydrates, the non-processed or refined carbohydrates. And so inside those are the micronutrients that gives you your vitamins and your minerals that you needed, amino acids. Okay, so that was all for that. Just have this little, I love it. So anyway, any questions? As always, let me know if you need any.